And the next big change is that instead of using an if-else construct here, we're going to use a try-catch. So try-catch is an interesting structure. It looks a little weird at first, and it might take you a little while to wrap your mind around it. I know it took me a little bit. The basic idea is that sometimes you want to throw errors, but it doesn't make sense necessarily to do an echo statement and echo your error, say, echo there's been a problem. It doesn't always make sense to do a die either, like sometimes you might do die and then pass a phrase to just kill the script from running. Sometimes you want something in the middle, and so what you can do is do try, and then if anywhere inside of this try code you set an exception that's basically setting an error of some kind, then you can use catch in order to check what kind of error it was and respond differently depending on the error. Now this is very powerful because you can set it to do different things depending on what kind of mode you're in. Maybe you're in a debugging mode and you want to see all of the errors that happen, but you don't want to kill the script ever. So if you structure your code cleverly, you can set a single variable that says debug on and get a lot more details about those errors. PHP will also format the errors in a particular way to make it easier to read. So what's happening here, we're starting a try, and then inside of our try, we do an extract, and we're using our matcher to match the URL that we were using before. Again, this is what we were setting here in path equals request get path info in our previous step. So we're again passing this extr skip so that we don't override any variables that were already set before we ran extract. We do our ob start just like we did before. We include our file and we set up the response. Now because we're using the matcher will create exceptions if there's a problem. So one of the exceptions that it will create is the resource not found exception. And if the exception is one of this type, then we know that we're trying to get a page that doesn't have a route defined for it yet, and we can set a 404 error. This line is identical to our previous one. If there's any other kind of exception, and we're going to set a 500 error code instead of 404. Now we need to do one more thing in order for this to work. We need to move our app.php file into our source folder. So I'm going to go back to our examples folder, and I'll take app, and I'm going to drag it over to source. Okay. Now let's take this for a spin. I'm going to go back to the browser and let's go to symfony/hello. We see hello world, so everything looks okay. Just to test it out, let's put a URL here that doesn't exist. I'm just going to add some random text to the end here, and we see not found.